All right, let's turn our attention to intellectual property. Since we moved online, everything is now virtual. I mean, books, music, videos. I just learned recently that they sell pictures. How do you even manage all of these issues? Physical, virtual, I don't know, but let's talk to those who experience it, and of course, a lawyer as well. We'd like to begin with Arese Ugu, who is the founder of Smart Money Africa, runs a personal finance blog which caters to the African millennial, and author of 2 best-selling books. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll also be having a legal practitioner. Well, tell us this. Are you having, you are online, you blog on finance and all of that. What are the issues that you think need to be dealt with as far as intellectual property is concerned?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me on. My name is Arese Ugu. I am the author and publisher of 2 books, The Smart Money Woman and The Smart Money Tribe. So they're financial education books that I published for African millennial women, and they're self-published in Nigeria. Let me just show you the difference between my book that I self-published and printed in Nigeria and the one that I bought my own book on the streets of Lagos for 1,000 naira. Now, the cost of production in Nigeria is high, I understand that, and many people feel like they can't afford the book. However, when you buy pirated copies of books, you give less incentive for Nigerian authors to write or publish books because we cannot monetize our skills, because the piracy dilutes the market with fake copies, and we're basically left on the lurch. So my book, I created all the buzz for it on social media, and women were really into it. We're turning the book into a TV series. However, they're now selling it on the streets of Lagos and Abuja and even Accra, which gives you less of an incentive to invest in publishing in Nigeria. Now, the issue with intellectual property from African creatives, or stealing intellectual property from African creatives, is unfortunately when you see international books like Michelle Obama's books on the streets, is bad, but they've already benefited from the structures in place in America to be able to monetize their books. So they've already made their money. But when you do it to an African author who has had to go through several hurdles because there's no infrastructure in place to be able to help us distribute and scale our books. So we have to basically be creative with the way that we distribute. So I've had to sell my books on a Health Plus, Ebano, supermarkets. Think creatively about where my target market goes to go and shop ordinarily, and leverage on those distribution channels. House of Tara, and it's been very amazing. But when you put in all that work, trying to create your own distribution channels, because they're not huge bookstores or national bookstores like in America or England, it poses a problem when people actually steal your intellectual property and they can get away with it. Now, there are piracy laws in Nigeria, but they're not easily enforced. I've spent
just one moment, Ms. Ugu, before we get to the legal angle of it. Is there anything, because I know many authors, complain about the cost of production in Nigeria and all of that, but has any finding been made to see a way of reducing that cost of production, so at least one way or another we can reduce, if not eliminate, the possibility of this piracy?
So one of the ways that we look at doing that is going on platforms like Bambooks, where people can read the book digitally and pay just as little as 900 naira subscription fee so that they can read unlimited books. So platforms like that help us, but we need to help to elevate them by creating awareness, by telling the Nigerian public that when you rip off an African creative, you are giving less incentive for them to continue to write books or invest in the publishing industry. So when you elevate or create awareness for platforms like Bambooks, you're telling them, listen, if you want to read the book that badly and you can't afford the physical copy, you can read it on a digital platform that's affordable. without, so that way you're supporting the authors as opposed to ripping off their work or supporting the pirates.
I'm also quite interested in that other book, the pirated one you have with you right there. Interested in the sense that, I mean, you must have done some findings. These books don't just pop up. Someone went through the process of printing this book, putting it out on the streets to be sold to you in this case. And a lot of other people that just go to bus parks, they're waiting in the bus and someone comes with a book. This is Arese's book, get it, you learn how to make money and whatnot. And they just feel they're buying your book. So, I mean, did you try to find out how this happened? There must have been some phone number or stuff on it. What did you find out?
There's no phone number, but it's from the investigations that we've been doing so far, it's definitely on a very large scale. There are people who are actually investing a lot of money to pirate the books, because there are people on Instagram selling the pirated copies and even tagging me. And when we called some of them, they said, "Oh, we're going to a depot on the mainland to collect it from their supplier." So it seems like it's a large-scale operation, but there's a problem sort of like pinpointing who these people are. But they've spent a lot of money and time. People are tagging me, and that's the beauty of social media, is it gives you a full feedback mechanism, because when people are buying it, they're tagging me and saying, "Oh, I saw this in Tejuo show, I just bought it, I'm so glad I finally gotten to buy this book. Oh, I bought it in Aja traffic. Oh, I bought it in Abuja traffic. Oh, I bought it in Accra." How did they get to Accra during this pandemic? It's unbelievable.
This is it's really sad, and it's not something that should be encouraged. But you know, the thing about this is, I'm just wondering if people were not there to buy some of these pirated copies, these other people wouldn't even be in business. From your perspective, do you think that there is that? How should people approach these kind of things? Because some of these people, when you ask them, they tell you, "Well, look, I didn't know." But there are other people who deliberately engage in buying those pirated copies as well, irrespective of what people may tell them. How do you think we should be approaching this to ensure that, look, we get off those who feed off those pirated copies and ensure that people who actually do own it get the proceeds from their hard work?
I think, first of all, it starts with creating awareness for how you're hurting the author. For example, I spent a year and a half writing my first book. I spent a year and 9 months writing my second book. And I've used my money to self-publish it in Nigeria with no help, from anywhere else. So if you imagine the kind of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into trying to scale an idea that basically came from your head, you should have some empathy, right? When you think, "Oh, it's cheaper, so I'll buy the pirated copy." But please think about the work that went into creating the quality that you enjoy so much. And I'm tempted to say that I want to stop writing because it's not lucrative, or it won't be lucrative anymore if this persists. But I would like to think that the women who have benefited, from my books will become the advocates against piracy and tell other people, don't buy the books on the streets. Please don't WhatsApp the books to your friend digitally, or send them via emails, because you're actually hurting the creatives behind these things.
It's a job of work for authors and the authorities to see what they can do. You've written a number of books. Did you anticipate this happening? And what about the relevant authorities, the police, those agencies? Have you reached out to them? What impression do you have of what they can do about it? Do they feel helpless?
I do feel helpless. I've had a few conversations with some lawyers, some people who actually focus on intellectual property. However, it does seem dim. The lawyers themselves are not confident that this is something that you can actually stop. When I've asked to a few people about the take of the police, they've said that you have to have money to mobilize them and go and ransack the places. And it just, it's upsetting that you put in the work, you have the copyrights, you did all the right things, and people can rip you off in broad daylight, and there's no regulation or help from the government to say to stop it. So I'm still in the process of trying to reach out to the Nigerian Copyright Commission, but if, anyone from there or anyone who can do anything to help me stop this, I'll be very glad.
Is there any way that one can bring down the cost of producing those books in Nigeria? Is there any way that can be explored so that we can run because if that was possible, we can run the pirates themselves out of business. Is there any way to bring down the cost of producing?
The cost of producing physical books will be a little bit tough because obviously we import a number of things, a number of components that you use to print. But we do try to keep the cost as minimal as possible. However, I think that in the future, what will help to reduce the cost is technology. So technology like what Bambooks is creating to make it more accessible to everyone. So like the music industry, they had this issue as well. But when the technology to distribute their music became available to everyone, it became a moot point for the pirates. So if we create awareness and an enabling environment for technology like Bambooks to exist and help to promote African authors, it can help in the future to reduce the cost of production of books.
Right. So obviously this is a huge challenge. I can imagine how you feel. I mean, having put in all that hard work into this book. Now, a lot of people will go out now. I mean, haven't seen you, will want to get your book definitely. So what should they look out for? You find out that some bookstores, for example, actually have the fake copies of the books. And I mean, deep down, they think they actually have the real copy. So, I mean, you just showed us those two books. I honestly can't tell the difference, except I probably have to use some technology and all that. So as some form of action point, what should people do?
I think, first of all, try to buy directly from the author. Try to buy from verified platforms like, Amazon or Books, from bookstores that have, a good reputation. But I can imagine that it's difficult for you to tell the difference because if I'm really honest, unless I open the inside of the pirated book to see how shoddy the printing is, it's hard for me to tell. If I hadn't made the effort to print a hard copy versus a paperback, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So I can see how it will be difficult for the readers to tell the difference. But you know that you're buying something wrong when you're buying it on the streets.
Maybe the authorities. Yeah, so are you suggesting that the authorities might need to actually go out to the streets and maybe arrest these people that sell those books at those areas? Are you suggesting that too?
Most definitely, because that's their biggest distribution channel, being able to sell it in the streets to people who are in traffic, right? So they're almost improving the buyer's experience because they don't have to do anything. They just buy it, on the street. However, when you're buying pirated copies on the streets, you know that the books are fake. That's already a big sign. So yes, the government should go and arrest them because you can't be stealing someone's work and be doing it in broad daylight and getting away with it.
Yes, we have to thank you very much, Arese Ugu, author of 2 best-selling books, Smart Money Woman and Smart Money Tribe. Thank you so much for your time and all the best.